Good afternoon and welcome to the Daily News Analysis by Civil Service Institute, Pala. Top stories of the day. India launches Operation Sindhu to evacuate citizens stuck in Iran. How India-Armenia alliance is paying off amid Israel-Iran crisis. Revising the GDP base year to provide a clearer picture of the state of economy. Trade tariffs close borders but may open doors to invasive alien species. What was decided at the UN Oceans Conference? And last, we look into Carolan Doctrine. News in detail. Government launches Operation Sindhu to evacuate citizens stuck in Iran. As a first step, the Indian embassy has evacuated 110 Indian students from northern Iran via Armenia using land route. More than 4,000 Indian nationals are said to be living in Iran, and half of them are students. As India monitors developments in the region and prepares its evacuation plans from the conflict zone, it faces a diplomatic challenge post Operation Sindhu. Armenia is one of Iran's neighboring countries that Delhi is in touch with. India doesn't have amicable ties with some of the other countries bordering Iran, especially Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan. So it becomes important for us to know which are the neighboring countries of Iran, both from the mains and prelims perspective, more important for the prelims. So the neighboring countries of Iran are, on the eastern side, we have Pakistan, Afghanistan, and to the northeast, we have Turkmenistan. Coming to the south, in the south, it is bordered by Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. And to the west, it has Iraq, and to the northeast, northernmost part, we have Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. And to the north, extreme north, it is bordered by Caspian Sea. So I hope it's clear. Please do mark these places in your atlas. Now, again, this article can be correlated with the first article, India-Armenia Alliance. The safe passage for Indians into Armenia was facilitated through the 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃 border crossing with Iranian airspace shut down indefinitely. Evacuations were carried out through land borders, and this was difficult for India since we have strained relations with most of Iran's neighbors. We have already seen which are the neighboring countries of Iran. So let's see. Pakistan remains our primary geopolitical rival, and the border between Iran and Pakistan in Baloch remains shut for Indian evacuees. Turkey and Azerbaijan, both of whom professed overt support for Islamabad during Operation Sindhu. And India does not have official ties with the Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. This leaves three countries through which Indians can be theoretically evacuated. They are Turkmenistan, Iraq, and Armenia. Iran-Turkmenistan border is sparsely populated, adding to the logistical challenges. Hence, the border with Iraq, on the other hand, lies directly in line of fire between Iran and Israel. This leaves with us the only option of Armenia. The Iran-Armenia border is thus the most viable option, with 𝗗𝗏𝗃𝗃 border crossing being a well-connected highway. Now coming to India-Armenia relationship. India has been a staunch backer of Armenia during its conflict with Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh has already been asked many times in UPSC Prelims exam, so please keep this in mind. India has become Armenia's biggest military supplier, with Indian supplies like Pinaka, multi-barrel rocket launchers, Agash 1S air defense systems, etc. Armenia has publicly endorsed India's position on resolving the Kashmir issue on bilateral basis, and also it supports India's aspirations for a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Armenia, which is a nation in the Southern Caucasus, is a crucial sport in the INSTC, which is the International North-South Transport Corridor, which aims to connect India to Europe through Armenia and Iran, which becomes important for India to build diplomatic relations, especially in the Middle East and more importantly in Central Asia, using the Caspian Sea. Moving on to the next news, revising GDP base year and why it is important. It is important to provide a clearer picture of the state of economy. GDP is a central metric to assess the overall size of an economy, and the base year is the year that serves as the starting point for calculations. At present, the base year is 2011-2012, and the new base year will be 2022-23. Now, this is the 8th such revision. The first set of estimates of national income, that is GDP, for India was compiled by the National Income Committee under the chairmanship of P.C. Mahalanobis in 1949. And what is the rationale behind these revisions? The short answer is to more accurately understand and report the state of the economy. Now, regular revisions in the base years help in two broad ways. One, they capture the changes in the way India's economy functions. New industries can be included and outdated ones removed from the calculations. And two, they provide a more accurate picture of real economic growth, that is, economic growth after removing the effect of inflation. Moving on to the next news. Trade tariffs can close borders but may open the doors to invasive alien species. So, the surge in global trade since the 1800s has indirectly contributed to biological invasions in both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, and invasive alien species are introduced by increased human activity around the globe. And the introduction of these exotic species can be deliberate or accidental. Shifting trade agreements and new ties between previously unlinked nations may further the spread of novel invasive alien species between continents. India has been a major exporter and importer of exotic species. Several species are in different stages of establishment, spread in the country, making it difficult to track their entry and expansion. So what are the examples of invasive alien species? You might have seen numerous of them, and previously in the UPSC Prelims exam, invasive alien species, the name of invasive alien species, or why is it in news recently? Such questions were asked. So please do note this area. Please read this article. So the examples are around 1847, with colonialism came giant African snail, and in 1955, when the country was facing acute shortage of food, the government imported wheat from USA under the PL 480 scheme, from which we got the Parthenium grass, again an invasive alien species, with ornamental pet trade and for biocontrol purposes. Gambusia, guppies, and angelfish were introduced, which then became invasive alien species in the country. So what are the ways to control? There are other prominent examples like Lantana camara, etc. Please do look what are the major invasive alien species, both in flora and fauna in the country. Now, what are the ways to control these invasive alien species? Like One Health, one biosecurity framework must be implemented, enforce stricter biosecurity at ports, real-time species tracking and early warning systems must be implemented, and mandatory post-trade biological impact assessments, typically quarantine facilities, must also be established, and integration and collaboration between government departments and scientific researchers are needed to control the growth of invasive alien species. Moving on to the next news. What was decided at the UN Oceans Conference? UN Oceans Conference conducted last week and concluded last week in France, with 56 of the necessary 60 countries ratifying the biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement, also called the High Seas Treaty. The third edition of the United Nations on Oceans Conference aimed to accelerate action on protecting oceans. Its main goal was to establish marine protected areas in international waters and thereby prevent overfishing as well as deep sea mining. This deals with parts of oceans that are not under the territorial limits of countries, hence they are called global commons. These areas are not under the jurisdiction of any country. It is a common area, hence global commons. Under UNCBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity, world's nations have committed to conserve 30% of the world's marine and coastal areas as protected areas by 2030. While 160 countries have signed biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, only 56 countries have ratified it. Signing and ratification is different. The treaty requires 60 ratifications to trigger a 120-day countdown before becoming legally binding. USA hasn't ratified, so has India, though India has said it is in the process of doing so. UN expects to reach 70 ratifications by September with the intention of hosting the first BBNJ Conference of Parties like the annual climate COPs in late 2026. Moving on to the last news for the day. This is from the Hindu's editorial, 𝗗𝗏𝗃 Doctrine. Why this becomes important? It's in the backdrop of Iran-Israel conflict. Israel's current use of force is illegal and would amount to aggression, which is a war crime under international law. The argument that Iran is close to acquiring the capability to develop nuclear weapons, and once it receives the said capability, it will destroy Israel is unjustified. So on the basis of this, 𝗗𝗏𝗃 Doctrine becomes important. What is 𝗗𝗏𝗃 Doctrine? The 𝗗𝗏𝗃 Doctrine outlines the conditions under which a nation can use force in self-defense against another state, specifically when a threat is instant, overwhelming, and leaving no choice of means and no moment for deliberation. With this, we conclude today's session. I hope it was useful and informative. Thank you. Have a nice day.